What's happening, everybody? We welcome you back to another episode of San Diego Prep Insider. Christian Pedersen, joined as always by Tommy Morris and Bodie DeSilva. Bodie DeSilva joining us on behalf of SbLive Sports, the official content provider of all things in the high school sports universe. Everything, photos, scores, recaps, analysis. Bodie doing lists of all the guys from San Diego or California in the NFL. He's got a shout out from the boss that
over 200
on that one. Bodie, congrats on all the great work. Make sure you download the SbLive Sports app. Tommy, as always, is joining us on behalf of the play of the week. Tommy, what do we got this week to educate the people on football?
He's got Verts. Just everyone go deep. Throw as far as you can.
Who is the intended target on Verts? I know you're going to say it's the open man, but is there one who you're like aiming for particularly? When you
best player.
Just the end zone?
Yeah.
Just not the guy doing the unders. Deal.
Yeah. No, I mean, sometimes. Who knows?
Fair enough. Before we get to anything else, just want to run people down what's coming up on the show. We got to get to some week 4 cleanup, roundup, get to more game balls, talk a little bit about what we've seen through the first 4 weeks plus of San Diego high school football. Then we will get to some game predictions and previews from coming up on week 5. So before we go any further, Tommy Morris, you've got some game balls that you wanted to get to from this past week.
Yeah, a lot of rushing in the game balls this week. I'm going to start up in Nita Vista with Cada Adam Tannehill. 179 rushing yards, 2 touchdowns in their win last weekend. So congratulations to him. How about Joseph Minchello from Crawford? 215 rushing yards on 8 carries. That's a heck of a stat line. 8 carries, 215 yards, and 3 of them were touchdowns. So I don't know what happened to those 5 other carries, but feels like he probably could have scored 8 touchdowns there. Good job, Joseph. Point Loma, Brady Allen in their revenge game against UC after losing them twice last year, including in the finals. He started at quarterback for the first time and did very, very well. 286 yards, combining his rushing and passing yards, and 4 total touchdowns. So good game for Brady. And finally, Jake Sweeney, Torrey Pines, they get the win over San Marcos. 126 rushing yards and 2 touchdowns for the Falcons.
That feels like one of the upsets potentially of the week. Bodie DeSilva, your thoughts, roundup, reaction, anything from week 4 that you wanted to get to?
Yeah, I'll throw out a couple game balls. Jacob Morgan from Mission Bay, 9 tackles, 2 sacks, forced a fumble, recovered a fumble for a touchdown in their win. Jaden Mangini with some video game-like numbers for La Jolla Country Day. 144 passing yards, 179 rushing yards, threw 3 touchdowns, rushed for 3 touchdowns. That was really impressive. And then Nico Viesca from Central, a Central team I got to see early in week 1, I think is pretty good. Their 1 loss to Ramona so far. It's not a bad loss at any means, but 171 yards, 3 touchdowns in their win over Otay. So Central has completed their 3 games of really coming out and playing San Diego teams in what many view as the section. Now they'll go back, certainly the favorite in the league out there, and a Central team that I think we'll see make a deep run in playoffs. As for last week, what you said, I think what we've seen is really the top 4 teams begin to separate themselves. When I go through making my top 10 each week, it seems like there's a lot of changes every week now at 5 through 10, and that top 4, they're all undefeated. Not to say that that's the lock for what the open division is going to be, but we have reigning state champions in Lincoln and Granite Hills. No surprise they're up there. Carlsbad team that has been number 1 all the way so far for me. And then a Helix team that I was really high on before the year and has won 3 straight road games and had some really impressive numbers, a huge second half last week at Madison to kind of end up with a 34-point victory, I believe it was. So Helix is definitely on the rise, and I think they're in that group with those other top 3.
Helix and Granite still have to play this year, so most likely, I'm assuming only one of them will end up making it into the open division based off of their relative strengths of schedule. You also, though, mentioned Helix.
And just to add one thing, yeah, that game last year was a 4 overtime game, so certainly looking forward to when they meet up again, because that will
5 overtimes this year.
Yeah,
going for 5.
Why not go for 6? You also mentioned though Helix and their big blowout. It seemed to me that of any of the weeks that we've had yet in high school football, this one was the biggest disparity type of week, where there was a lot of looking up and down and going, oof, that was a bit of a bloodbath. Oof, that was a bit of a bloodbath. And I'm curious, as we are now out of the, it's too small of a sample size, and 4 weeks or 3 for some of these teams is a pretty decent sampling on some of these. So do you think we are starting to see some of the races narrow down and some of these wins were not blips and it was like, yo, that team is finally just good. They got everyone healthy, or they got all the people off of transfer sit outs, or they got all X, Y, whatever it was, we're starting to really see some teams click? Or do you think there was some aberrations there in just, football is not it's not a round ball. Sometimes what should have been a 1-score loss turns into a 4-score loss really, really quickly. Bodie, your thoughts on just kind of the maturation and development of some of these teams through 4 weeks?
Yeah, I think some of them just continue to get better, but I think some of it is that teams are kind of finishing out their non-league schedule. Maybe this was one last one to kind of lead them into their bye week, lead them into league play, whatever it may be, kind of ease their way in that way where it wasn't the most difficult game on their schedule, the most difficult non-league game. So I think it's kind of a combination of some teams have just progressed better over this first month. Mission Hills is one that, having talked to them, I know they feel they keep getting better week by week after taking a loss early on. They went to Granite that opening week, and since then have come away with 3 wins. So I think it's partially teams that have continued to get better, but some of it I think is just a weird week with the schedule of some teams are just kind of leading into that bye week, leading into the league portion of their schedule.
Tommy, your thoughts?
I'll add one thing on top of it. Some of these teams just had either 1 or 2 significant injuries that made it more difficult for them this week, and that doesn't happen in week 1, obviously, because everyone's healthy, and then by week 4, you have a couple guys who maybe can't play for a couple weeks, whatever it may be. So I think that had a huge impact on some of it too. And like Bodie said, if you had to have a perfect schedule, you would want your 2 easiest games. I hate saying that word because it's, every game's tough, but your 2 easiest games you'd want to be week 1, and then whatever the week is before league play, just because that's kind of what you would prefer. But it's hard to schedule like that. I will say one more thing with all the roster turnover. A lot of these games were scheduled assuming a team was going to look one way, and then all of a sudden they don't. So some of these weird scheduled games that would have been even last year are no longer even, because there's a lot of roster turnover now with all the transferring and stuff like that. So it's not as easy to schedule games as a head coach, I don't think, because you really have no idea what you're signing up for until week 1. And to kind of echo your point, I think by week 4, teams that have played well are good teams. Teams that have underperformed, maybe that's what they actually are. So I think we have a very good idea of who's who and who to watch out for come playoff time.
All right, guys, let's talk about a little bit of the upcoming games for week 5 as we reach that halfway mark. First one I want to talk about, Claremont, El Cajon Valley. Now, this is a pair of teams that I think we had very different expectations for going into the season. But like Tommy said, turnover sometimes yield massive changes. El Cajon Valley, we knew they were going to be good. Paris Dixon and company, they are good this year. They are very good. They are potentially in contention for some division championship races. Claremont was a school that we had kind of picked as new head coach. There's going to be some turnover. How long is that going to take? 2 wins in a row right now. Have them, turning it around a little bit. So this will be a good heat check game for both of these teams. Bodie DeSilva from SbLive Sports, let's start with you.
Now I'm off mute to avoid some dog barking. 2 teams that are pretty familiar. They've played a lot in recent years. They matched up in a playoff game last year. I'm going to go with El Cajon Valley here, but I think this is a really close game. Just a lot of the familiarity and kind of what they are personnel-wise at this point. Claremont won this game when they played in 2019, and then El Cajon Valley's won each of the last 2 years. So I think a lot of just kind of knowing what each other is, and I expect it to be a game in the 20s really, and El Cajon Valley comes out with a win.
I always love Bodie dipping into the history of when the last time this game or the other was played, ever since the 1962 Grossmont versus Palo Verde Valley.
Always looking for it to be the first between 2. That's the rare one.
Yeah, yes, absolutely. Tommy Morris, your thoughts on Claremont and El Cajon Valley?
Well, El Cajon Valley won last week, and I pride myself in knowing all the rules and all the weird intricacies of the rule book, but I learned a new one last week. El Cajon Valley, the game-winning field goal was blocked, but it goes towards the end zone, past the line of scrimmage, and then a Montgomery defender knocked out of bounds. Illegal batting, so they get another chance at it. I still not sure if that's how that's called, but yeah, a win's a win. So congratulations to El Cajon Valley for last week. Claremont, different team this year than last year, and just kind of different vibe with the young coaching staff, kind of re-energized this program. Jackson Merrifield and Tyler Allen combined for 200 rushing yards and 5 touchdowns last week. Elkhorn Valley, yes, they won a last second field goal, but they played well the whole way through. That was not just some lucky fluke. Derek DuBois, 100 yards and a touchdown last week. I like Elkhorn Valley again. I agree with Bodie's sort of assertion for the final score will be, I think, 3 scores each, and maybe Elkhorn Valley wins by 1. I think it's going to be very, very close, but I like Elkhorn Valley.
Right. Let's move on to Saturday, where we got Friday, where we got a couple of interesting games, including, let me see, digging through my notes here. LCC and Fallbrook is one that I think is very interesting because both of these teams at 3-1 right now on paper look good, but this will be a good question of every time we've looked at LCC the last couple of weeks, it's, are they going to differentiate themselves? Are they going to come for that open division spot? Because like we said, Helix and Granite Hills, somebody has to give there. And so there will be a 4th team moving in, and wide open field for that right now. Let's start with you, Tommy Morris, LCC and Fallbrook.
I like LCC here. Big win for them last week against Mira Mesa. That's a good Mira Mesa team, a kind of a blowout win. I was pretty shocked to see that. Quinn Roth, 245 passing yards, 3 TDs. He's only a sophomore. Sergio Garcia, the transfer in, 105 of those receiving yards and 3 touchdowns for him. Huge week for the whole Mavericks roster. Fallbrook had a good week last week as well. Chris Bosch is averaging 133 rushing yards a game. He's got 7 total touchdowns. I like LCC in this one by a couple touchdowns. I think that offense is just too good for a lot of teams. I think the offense is going to score a lot of points, is what I'm going to say. So I like LCC by a few touchdowns here. But Fallbrook, again, this is a good team. This is not a knock on Fallbrook. I just think Jose, West Coast Athletics, whatever you want to call him, calls some great plays. Quinn Roth, a great quarterback, only a sophomore. I like the Mavericks.
I will remind everyone, Fallbrook beat Poway last year. Bodie DeSilva, your thoughts on this game?
Yeah, a lot of what Tommy just said. I thought La Costa was really impressive last week. I expected them to win. I didn't expect them to win in that fashion. The week before, they'd scored 3 points at San Clemente. We're figuring out more and more that's a very, very good San Clemente team. So for them to bounce back and do what they did was impressive. The notes on this one, La Costa Canyon head coach Sean Sovacool is a Fallbrook alum. And they haven't played each other since 2011. I was a little surprised about that, considering he went there and maybe doesn't want to play and have those stressful games against his alma mater as much. But yeah, I would expect La Costa in this one. The way the offense looked last week, I don't know how you'd expect too much different from them.
I just want to say, Jose, I'm messing with you. Yes, I know it's Left Coast Athletics.
Do we have any?
Hopefully, you watch far enough to get to this part of the preview.
Do we have any Sean Sovacool Fallbrook stats?
That might be a little further back than what we have in the.
We got to get a photo, maybe. Throw that up there.
We'll see if we can dig up something for a throwback there eventually. Next game we got is San Pasqual at Orange Glen. Pair of teams that are hungry for a win here. Let's start with you, Bodie DeSilva.
Yeah, this is a big rivalry game for them here. I'm forgetting the exact naming of it. Of the Bear, maybe Battle of the Bear. I'm sure Andrew Clark will correct us, and I know there's not too much love between these two schools here. Yeah, I think for San Pasqual, it's going to be another one for them here in this rivalry. I'm going to, as we go through it, check the exact history because I believe it's been pretty dominant for San Pasqual in recent times here. But I would expect them to take care of business. They've had a very tough schedule so far, and I expect them to get it done. Yeah, this will be actually I believe 50th time they've played. So. It is, yeah, it's been a lot of Orange Glen in recent times as I go through.
Pasqual or a lot of Orange Glen?
Or excuse me, yeah, a lot of San Pasqual victories as I'm counting them up here. Yeah, I'm at 11 in a row, and I'm going to stop at that point. So a lot of San Pasqual dominance dating back to looks like 2004. So I would expect that to continue once again. It seems like having taken the lumps, they got that first win last week against Valley Center. I think they add a second one in a row now.
Last game we got for this week, and if there's any that you guys want to talk about, make sure you hit us up on social media at SD Prep Insider. Last game is the Discovery Bowl, Mission Hills at San Marcos. Tommy Morris, your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, but really quickly, I'm just going to say I'm going to pick San Pasqual also. I believe they won 50-20 last year, excuse me. Want to say one nice thing, but I'll get this out there about Orange Glen. Andrew Rios and Bowden Cannon last week, and there went 378 rushing yards and 4 touchdowns. So I think this game will be closer than last year, but I still think San Pasqual wins this one. The final game we're talking about, Mission Hills to San Marcos. I I had to do a triple check on my computer to make sure I had the right Mission Hills roster I was looking up, because somebody uploaded stats, which they have not done. I think I can never remember. I don't think they've ever done that.
Possibly players submitted, I'm thinking.
Yeah. Troy Hunt, the quarterback, with back-to-back 3 touchdown games. I'm only able to tell you that because the stats are online. San Marcos was kind of a tough injury last week, so I like Mission Hills here. This would have been a closer game. I don't think it's going to be, a big blowout, but I do like Mission Hills by a couple scores. It's just going to be a tough go this year for San Marcos.
Bodie DeSilva from Scorebook Live, your thoughts on this game?
Yeah, another rivalry game here. I'll get this one correct. This is the Discovery Bowl. That one I'm quite sure of. As Tommy said, the injury to San Marcos last week probably played a big role in their loss to Torrey Pines, and now they're coming back having a rivalry without having their starting quarterback. San Marcos won this rivalry game in 2018, and since then, Mission Hills has won 41-7, 50-6, 41-0, and 45-0. So I think, unfortunately for San Marcos, it's just going to be the wrong timing of having that injury occur. Certainly at the last possible time you'd want that to happen. And I got to see Mission Hills last week in person. They forced Orange Fist into 11 turnovers, which I'm not sure I've ever seen that before. 5 interceptions. It was remarkable. So how they only won by 29 and forced 11
6 fumbles,
some turnover on downs.
Oh, those don't count.
Oh, I'm counting them in my book.
All right, fine. All right.
I think it was 5, 3, and 3. So it'd be, I guess, 8 if you're not going to count them that way. I know the NFL doesn't count them that way, but when I looked up the official statistics, they are going to count them.
We'll put that in the poll at SD Prep Insider on Twitter and Instagram. Do turnover on downs count as turnovers?
Has the word within the name. So.
Never thought about that as a
stat. It does.
Regardless, though, 5 interceptions, 3 fumbles. They were flying around. So
we can also maybe put it on the poll at SD Prep Insider on Twitter and Instagram. Did Kyle Phillips take the heart and soul of San Marcos football with him when he graduated? Because they have not been good, like you said, Bodie, since that one graduating class of Josh Bournes and Kyle Phillips and all those guys. And I don't know what happened. I know coaching changes have happened, but I don't know what really happened that you go from competitive to that far apart in a rivalry like that. It's a pretty big gap. Anything else from high school football this week, guys?
No, I think some teams will have these buys these next couple of weeks, and then these league races are going to be really exciting. We mentioned the Helix Granite one. That's the one kind of at the top of my mind. But the Western League, I think, can anyone kind of get their shot at Cathedral, Madison, Saints, who's kind of battling for that next spot up? I think that's really interesting as well.
D1 and Open are still interesting. I give D2 and 3 the vaguely interesting category. 4 and 5 AA are completely locked up. No question about who's going to win those. And D5, if Hoover can stay healthy, I'm assuming that they are the favorites. But yeah, so D Open through 3, still very interesting and competitive to see who's going on in all those races. So a lot there. Tommy Morris, you're nodding your head. Just agreement, or there's something else you want to say on the way out?
I would just want to say, come playoff time, I don't like it. The word like lock. I don't like it. I don't know. I don't like anything locked up.
That there is somebody in 5 AA who poses a threat to Army Navy Academy.
Who knows? You don't know. I don't know. Nobody knows. Who knows?
The referees, maybe.
What if there's a kid who's just waiting for that, for that 5-game sit out period, who's, 6'4", 230 pounds of muscle at, Maranatha? Who knows?
At Rock Academy?
Yeah. You don't know. I don't know. Who knows? Maybe someone's got an ace up their sleeve.
A little one of those I am 12 type situations.
Yeah, he's the 14-year-old freshman that has to sign the waiver to play varsity.
Exactly.
Yeah. All right. Well, we will have that breaking news for you next week when someone from 5 AA comes out with an army of ringers that they've been waiting 5 weeks to unleash. Holtville, look out. They're coming for you. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in to another episode of San Diego Prep Insider. We'll talk to you guys next week.